Oh.
It's tough to press mute on like the YouTube video.
On this one down here?
Feedback happens. Just give it a moment. Back in the other. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just press the speaker button.
Right here on this one.
Yeah. Just mute it. Sorry. Yeah. Perfect. Then you're good on that screen.
So I can just
Now we're
minimize.
good to go. Yep.
Thank you.
Call this meeting to order. Can I get a mover and a seconder to reconvene into open session, please? Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor Newell. The Council of the Municipality of Huron East reconvene into open session at 6:06 p.m. All those in favor? And motion carries. For reporting out, Council went into closed session to discuss matters relating to a position, plan, or procedure for any negotiations on behalf of the municipality and personal matters about unidentifiable individuals. Land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the neutral peoples. Can I get a mover and a seconder for confirmation of the agenda, please? Councillor Steffler, Councillor Wilby, that the agenda for the regular meeting of council dated February 3rd of 2026 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? And motion carries. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from any member of council for this portion of the meeting? Councillor Steffler.
12.2 on the grant.
Okay, Councillor Morrison.
12.2 on the grant.
Can I get a mover and a seconder for the minutes of the previous meeting? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Chartrand, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approved the following council meeting minutes as circulated. That would be the regular meeting of January 13th, 2026. Any comments or questions on those minutes? All those in favor? And motion carries. There are a number of items on the consent agenda. Are there any items that anybody would like to have pulled and commented on at this time? Councillor Steffler.
The first one, the treasurer's report, I just want to thank you for putting that in there. I know it's required, but it's the first time that's actually hit the council agenda in such detail. But thank you, and really acknowledge that the work that goes into that and the cost that it takes to run the municipality. Thank you.
Any other items that anybody would like to have pulled at this time? Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder to accept the consent item agendas? Councillor Fisher and Councillor Wilby, that the consent agenda items 8.01 to 8.14 be received for information and approved. All those in favor? And motion carries. Under public meetings, hearings, and delegations, Watson and Associates, Economists Limited. And Tina, welcome again.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let me know when you're ready.
Sure. Thank you. Just be 1 second pulling it up here.
And just like the other meeting, Tina, if possible, I'd rather leave more time in case there's questions rather than just going through the whole
Just want
report.
to get this ready so
Thank
I can
you.
actually view it. Presentation.
No, it's your screen. So go down to the, yeah.
All right. Here we go, Tina.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So as you said, my name is Tina Titsendi, and I'm a senior project coordinator at Watson and Associates. And I've spent the last few months working with staff on this great work. We think so. And we're really looking forward to presenting it to you and walking you through what we've done as well as our recommendations. I will keep it, as the mayor said, pretty high level, but there's a session for questions where you'll be able to ask. Yeah. And then just in terms, sorry, next slide. So in terms of the work consisted of two pieces. So the first piece was the water and wastewater rate study, where we really looked at the cost of running the systems and understanding what the rates need to be in order to recover those costs. And then the second piece is the financial plan, and that's driven by regulation, especially on the water side, because the legislation requires that you maintain a drinking water license. And to get that license, you need to submit a water financial plan to the province. So that's the second piece of the work. And then just some of the things we went through, we're looking at service demands in this municipality, so understanding how much growth you'd have, what that would require, identifying capital and operating expenses to really figure out what those rates need to be. Next slide. Then in terms of methodology, I've got this chart. I will not walk you through every box, but what I just wanted to highlight are the inputs into the process, just so you have an understanding of what the methodology is. And what you'll see is there's some bubbles to the left that say growth forecast, and then it leads down into user count and profile and then consumption forecast. So that's the side of the customers understanding who will be using the service, who will be paying for the service, because that becomes a key component to calculating rates. The other side of the picture that you see is you'll see some green bubbles that say capital works and then some that say operating. So the capital, that's identifying what capital projects, so what infrastructure type projects need to be done over the 10-year forecast, what that will cost and how you pay for it, plan to pay for it. And we look at a number of sources of funding, including grants, if you know of any that are in the pipeline and have been approved. We look at different funding methodologies and tools. So if you had development charges, we could look at those. We consider what the legislation says about how you fund it and what pieces of funding we can use. Then we develop a capital budget forecast. There's also the operating side of it, which is the operating budget, which looks at the costs to run the systems on a day-to-day basis, as well as transfers to the reserves in order to pay for capital. And then one thing I want to emphasize, you'll see arrows going in multiple directions back and forth. And that is just to say, as we do this, we're very cognizant of the impact on the ratepayers. And we want to make sure that whatever is being put forth makes sense from a feasibility and affordability. So sometimes you have to iterate through those boxes. Okay, so next slide. And then on the slide, we're just showing the rate structure that's currently in place in the municipality. Across the top, you see the 4 systems and then the rates that are in each one. And what I really want to highlight is what you see is there's 4 different rate structures. They differ from system to system, which means people are getting the same service, but paying very differently depending on where they're located in the municipality. You'll also see the rates for connection charges for new users if they're joining the system to contribute to that capital cost that the municipality incurred in order to put the system that they can now benefit when they join. Next slide. So this one, I think the key things I'll just highlight is in the municipality, there are about 2,400, a little under, for water customers and around 2,000 wastewater customers. The breakdown, you can look at, but just at a high level, that's our starting point. And then if we move to the next slide, we then show that over the 10 years, you will have new users coming onto those systems. So that 2,400 in 10 years is projected to be about 26, a little under 2,700 on water. And then for wastewater, go from like 2,000, just under to about 2,300. Then we also have the volumes of water and wastewater that they, the billable volumes in addition to the minimum bill. Slide. So I like the slide because it gives you a snapshot of the planned capital forecast over the 10 years. And what you see is that on water for 10 years, it cost around, it's projected to cost about 5.2 million. And then wastewater is 25.9 million. That's a big number, but one thing that I believe is important to highlight is that it includes that sewage treatment plant expansion project where you got a grant for 14.8 million. So really, most of it's coming through the grant, which is something to celebrate. Next slide. Then on this slide, again, we did talk, there's capital and operating, so just highlighting that you've got the operating budget. It consists of those day-to-day costs, so staff costs, as well as the capital side. And then I'll call out those two numbers that we have for the reserve transfers, because part of why your operating budget increases over time is that you're trying to pay for assets that are in place and make sure you maintain them to have that approved level of service. So there is a certain cost that through the asset management plan, it was determined that that's your average annual spend. And so instead of saying next year you go to that number, we're saying build gradually to that number so that it's not such a shock for the rate payers. Next slide. So again, this is just showing you like how the budget, the operating budget is growing gradually and showing you the split between the day-to-day costs, which are the darker shaded area. And then the lighter shaded area is the capital related. And then we just show them separately for water and wastewater. We go to the wastewater one, it would be the same structure. We've got the capital related and operating. All right, next one, please. And then in terms of our recommendations, so to get to the recommendations, we looked at the municipality's current setup, so the current approach, status quo, where you've got different rates for each system, maintain separate reserves by service and by system. Which means from a staffing side and from execution, you have to kind of run them like a separate and standalone systems and reserves. The recommendation is that going forward, implement a uniform rate structure across the municipality where rates are consistent for service and usage no matter where you are, and then consolidate the reserves by service. So you've got one for water, one for wastewater, instead of having, I believe right now, there are like 7 separate reserves. And some of the benefits of consolidating are that you can smooth out the rate impacts over time, which you will see in the following slides. And then you also, it provides for these economies of scale where you can take the same cost, but now you've got a larger denominator, which really helps and reduce pressure into smaller systems. Also helps on the, some efficiencies on the administration side. Okay, so now the billing impacts, which I think is really important to consider, is here we've got the unmetered customers, so they don't have a water meter. In Bruceville, they only have water service, fairly small system. And what you see is that the consolidation happens in 2026, adopt the uniform rates, is that for 2026, their water bills would actually go down. In Brussels and Seaforth, the bills would go up by about $156, which works out if I did the conversion. So per month, that would be about $13 a month. And then after that, so starting in 27 and on, water bills would go up by about $29, wastewater $39. The total $67 a year increase if you both services. Similarly, next slide, please. And then on the other side, if you have a water meter, you also pay a meter charge on top of your consumption charge. So these bills, if you metered, you will see that in Brussels and Seaforth, the increase is Seaforth, it's 163, I believe. And then Brussels is 169. If you're in Banastra, your bill would go down by about 160 in 2026. And then thereafter, those bills would go up $70 a year, which works out to $581, a little under $6 a month. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, we just wanted to put it in context of what's happening around the municipality. So we did a survey of rates and looked at what the bills are for similar usage across some of the comparative municipalities. And what you see is your relative positioning. Like if you look at the lighter bars, sorry, I don't have a pointer, I'm using my finger. So the lighter bars with the gray arrows, those are the current rates. Like if we looked at 2025, that's what those annual bills would have been. And then the hatched box with the black arrow, that is the uniform rates if that's implemented. And what you see is that Brussels and Seaforth do go up. They would have gone up even if the systems were separate. And then Banastra comes down. So you go to that sort of, the middle ground, so to speak. And then I would note that Brussels doesn't fully move much because they only have water service. So you'd only be looking at the blue button, the blue section in that hatched
That's Bruce's, right?
Brucefield.
No.
Brucefield,
Yeah.
pardon me, thank you. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so the second piece, like I said, is the financial plan. And that one, what I want to highlight is the findings of the rate study and the financial plan. Those two pieces go hand in hand. What you're doing is translating or presenting the information differently. So for example, the rate study is prepared on a modified cash basis. Financial plans accrual. What that means, to just give an example, is that when we're thinking of a budget, we put our expense to pay a debt, right? You care about interest and you care about principal. When we get to the financial plan and we put that as an expense forward. In the financial plan, we say, well, principal is actually debt reduction, not an expense. And then interest is an expense. So it's the same information, just presented differently. And this method for the financial plan is specified by the province. But I find unless you're really an accountant, most of us don't think that way. We think from a cash basis, how much money is going out, how much money is coming in. And that's how we plan. So now we've got, if we go to the next couple slides, we've got some recommendations. So there are 4 in the rate study, which is really just approving the rate study and that uniform plan, uniform rates, as well as the capital expenditure plans, which are detailed in the report. And then on the financial plan, next slide, please. There's also 4 of these recommendations. So again, approving the financial plan, the province requires, or the regulation requires, that the notice is provided to let people know that that financial plan is available, as well as authorizing for staff to actually submit it and submit the resolution approving the financial plan to the province. So this concludes my prepared presentation, but happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, so just so council knows, so Tina, Watson and Associates, worked with local staff, worked with the planning department to gather all this information, and even our staff explained how they massaged some of the numbers from the county, because the county may have used just an aggregate across, but they knew that some of those numbers weren't realistic for growth in small towns like Bruceville, things like that. So any questions about the data or anything else, we would direct those to Tina at this point. The decision that the board had to make and the recommendation to this council was whether we went scenario 1 or scenario 2. And when we get to section 12, we'll have that discussion. So any question you have about the data or the report itself, please direct those to Tina now. But if you're fine with that, it was certainly how to do which scenario, or which scenario to do was the major discussion. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the councilors that weren't at the Public Works meeting, the initial plan was to increase water 120.
But that's the scenario 1, scenario 2, Bob, which we're going to get to in number 12.
I'm just prefacing fine, here's my
Yeah.
question then. The initial idea was $240 or $120. Did you put it that high at the beginning because there's some project that needed lots of money immediately? Or that number just seems a better way to do it?
So that number came out of looking at the long-term requirements of each system. And then determining how we get to fund that and achieve that goal. And in discussions with staff, one of the things we looked at was, if we know where we're going in terms of endpoint, maybe instead of rates increasing all the time at this higher rate, maybe make it a little bit larger in the first year and then lower increases for the remainder of the forecast.
Yeah, but by changing how we did it, didn't impact anything.
No, it did not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Tina at this point? Councillor McGrath.
On your chart for operational costs to operate the system, got pretty substantially. In over a 10-year period, or at least you did.
Do you want to go to slide?
I was just going with the chart, whatever the chart was, orange and blue.
Yeah. Just asking her to pull it
Yeah.
in for us.
Yeah,
This
that-
one here?
Yeah,
Operational costs, like it seems to really from 25 to 35, but that's. That's quite a bit of money. going up.
yeah.
But is that based on a percentage per year, 4%, 5% per year, or?
So what we do is we look at the components of your operating budget. So we look at all the line items in the operating budget, we look at staffing costs, we look at the cost of the contract to operate the system, we look at like component by component, and then have discussions around what that inflation has looked like historically and what we know the trends are going. And then we base those projections on that line by line sort of inflation forecast.
Okay. So it's
So that's for the dark blue part, right?
dark, all right.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's no other questions, not only, thank you very much for the report that you put together, Tina. There was a lot of good information in there. Brought us some good discussion. But thank you very much for the fact that the committee put you on the spot and asked you to rerun some numbers in the middle of the meeting to see what the results of that would be. And in 10 or 15 minutes, you had the information back, and it certainly helped us move forward with the decision. So thank you for your professionalism.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you.
At this point, we're going to 10.1, planning report, consent application 63 of 2025. Welcome, Shay.
I couldn't get your presentation. No, sorry.
Most of the visuals are in the agenda, so it's.
Yep.
Gotcha.
For that, if there's any,
I can pull that up.
so this is consent application C63/2025. Subject property is located at 80266 Maitland Line. The applicant is John McCurcher from McCurcher Murray Corporation, and the owner is Cronin. So the purpose of this application is to create a new lot under the surplus farm residence severance policies, as well as for the creation of 3 agricultural parcels for a total of 4 lots on this application. Thanks, that parcel. So the severed parcel for the application is highlighted there in blue. It's about 96 acres in size, consisting of vacant agricultural land and existing livestock barn. The surplus, proposed surplus residential lot is listed there as retaining parcel number 1. And it's outlined in red there. It is approximately 1.8 acres in size and contains an existing housing shed. Retained parcel number 2, which is in yellow there. Thank you, Megan. Approximately 98 in size. And then the last retained parcel number 3 is at the bottom towards the south, outlined in green. This parcel is about 46 acres. And then if you just scroll down to the next. Perfect, thank you. So then just a closer aerial photo of the proposed surplus residential lot here. So as I noted, it contains an existing residence and storage shed. On this image here, you can see the existing livestock barn on the, in this case, the severed farm. The livestock barn is in the process of being removed, and this is also attached as a condition in order to comply with the MDS requirements to the new proposed lot lines. And you'll note the proposed boundaries of the residential lot here are proposed so as to reduce the amount of cropland for the residential lot. So in terms of comments received on this application, there was one objection received by a neighboring property owner. This correspondence was included in the council materials. I had a discussion with the neighboring property owner clarifying the policy context relating to this application. The neighbor did submit objections and concerns related to the reasoning and future planning of the parcels if something goes through. They also had some concerns with the potential implications to neighboring farmers and livestock facilities, as well as some concerns due to past energy related developments on the subject property. The applicant did provide some follow-up clarifying responses to the questions raised. And noted that the purpose of the application is to provide flexibility for succession planning for farm operation. And plans for a family member to reside in the quote surplus residential. They also noted that the application is limited to any past energy related development. Also note that any such proposals would require planning approvals as well as municipal support. Should that ever come again. And in terms of the potential impacts to neighboring farm properties, no new residential use for proposed on any of the parcels, so there is no new MDS constraint proposed for neighboring farm operations in terms of livestock operations. Hearing staff had no concerns to the proposed severance, but did note that they wanted the north and northeast lot lines bumped out a little bit further past the grass area, just to provide a little bit more buffer space between the existing septic bed and the lot lines to make the required clearances. And then lastly, a portion of the property is regulated by Basin Conservation Authority. They noted no concerns, but just I note that if there's any future development on the regulated lots, a conservation authority is going to maybe. In terms of policy review, the subject property is zoned natural environment, which is a small portion of woodlot and agriculture. It's designated agriculture and natural environment. So this application is a little unique, so it's subject to both the surplus farm, wildlife residence policies, as well as the agricultural lot creation policies. If you want to go back to the main sketch there with all the parcels.
Mhm. This one here?
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
So retained parcel number 1 on the sketch here proposes the new law under the surplus severance evidence policies. The parcel meets all the criteria for severance, including that the residence is surplus to the owners who own several other farm parcels containing residents in the area. And the existing livestock farm on the severed parcel in this case is currently in the process of being removed. I will also note the PPS requirements for to prohibit the construction of a new residence on the farmland. The severed parcel in this case will be addressed through the automatic zoning to HE2 on the severed parcels. Okay. So then the retained parcels number 2 and 3, so the yellow and green on the sketch here are proposed for the creation of the agricultural parcels subject to the agricultural lot creation policies. So the Huron special plan also provides policies for land division in the agricultural designation subject to several criteria, which the application follows. So including that the operation is part of a agricultural operation, the intent is for agricultural use, like no changes proposed to the existing operations. And then one thing I want to note here. So the policy for the minimum area requirement in the initial plan is 50 acres. You will note that retained parcel number 3. So the green parcel to the south is actually 18.75 hectares or 46 acres. The official plan does provide a policy for minor interpretation, provided that the intent and spirit of the plan is maintained. And since this parcel is entirely croppable farmland, it meets the intent. And for this criteria for lot creation. I think that's all I wanted to say there. So as a result of the review, the application meets the requirements of the PPS special plan, zoning bylaw. The application is recommended for approval subject to the attached conditions.
Any questions for the planner, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your Shane, just for clarification, retain lot 2 and 3, both are available to build a house on them if you wanted to, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So in this case, the automatic zoning to prohibit residence will just apply to the severed parcel.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Dalton?
So just a comment or just thinking going forward, this retained number 3 is by default. That it's 46 acres, it can be severed off. So it's kind of by default, by the other two being severed away from it. Is that kind of how that would work? Because they're both within acceptable range, but then we're left with a smaller lot.
Yeah, so it's kind of the remaining piece, I guess, from the severance. There was I think it originally was 50 acres at some point in the previous severance portion. But the 46 acres meeting the intent of the 50 acre minimum.
And that's being more or less, the other two are being severed off it, so if that leaves it by default.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other questions? Shay, I only have one. As soon as you talk about estate planning, things like that, that seems to sway a lot of county council to move these things forward. But along with the fact that we now have 2 more locations where you can take farmland out and build a residence in the rural area. That's a concern when we're trying to preserve as much farmland as possible. Is there any appropriate way to restrict those other parcels from having development done on them from a housing standpoint? If someone wants to put a barn on them or a driving shed or something else, couldn't care less because that's part of farming operation. But to build more residential lots in the countryside, that's certainly something that both the planning department and the province and here in East would like to avoid.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I suppose you could address this through requesting that the online rezoning condition to restrict a residence could be applied to retained parcels in the 2 and the 3. The line of thinking here with only requiring it on the severed parcel was that they could have done this with 2 separate applications, either doing the surplus severance first, in which case we would, well, that is we were doing it here, but if we had done it with the kind of the reverse, severing the 150 acres off, there would be no requirement for rezoning through that application. So they could have done it that way to avoid that. So that was kind of a line of thinking that doing this through one application. You see that kind of the overall plan for the properties. But addressing that through a condition is something we think better.
Deputy Mayor.
Historically though, that property probably had a house on it. And a barn on it. And if we want to support agriculture. Somebody wanted to start farming.
And I would suspect that if you got someone starting into farming, the smaller parcel may be the more attainable one for a new person getting into the operation. And I can't say for sure, but quite often if there's 100 acres for sale someplace, it's somebody that's already got a bunch of land that's buying it up because they want a bigger parcel because of bigger equipment and everything else. I think it's worth having the discussion, and that type of condition certainly could be discussed at the county level. It doesn't have to be done here. Any other questions or comments? Councilor McGrath.
I have no problem with somebody wanting to put a house on it. House would take an acre of land at the most, section. But there is a concern from the letter here that says effective building barns in the future. So if somebody moves in there and puts the barn house on a medium 2 or 3, that potentially not necessarily restricts, but definitely gives purpose wherever they have to build the barn, how far away, if they can build it, if they've got the distance from other places in the area. So you do bring up a point in that regard, but I mean, house-wise, we need residences to pay taxes is what we need. But
I understand that point, although lots of times when we do these rural residence severances, it's usually at least 3 acres or more Where if you take that 3 acres and put it on the edge of an urban center, you can typically build 30 to 50 residential units in that same 3 acres where you end up with one house in the countryside.
We're at 2.5. so-
Yeah.
That's just. What I look at, that's all, I think it's.
Okay.
Not everybody wants to live in the country, but. It seems to chop it up, I'm familiar with the property, that's all. That's where the battery plant was presumably going in at that time frame.
If there's no other questions from council. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Steffler, that the council of the municipality of Huron East acknowledge the report of Huron County Planner Shay Stahl dated February 3rd of 2026, and has no objection to consent application C63 of 2025, provided the conditions as outlined in the planning report are met. All those in favor? And motion carried. We are down to 12.1, the water and wastewater rate study recommendation. Okay, we took an hour and a half to discuss this, so I'm gonna take a couple of minutes to go through it here. There was two scenarios, the one, which basically at the end of the day, 11 years down the road, we were gonna raise the same amount of money. Because that was the money it was gonna take to run the operation, but staff did tell us that when they started this entire project and they saw that there was two scenarios that were going to be looked at, they actually stated that they thought scenario one was probably going to be the one that we went with, which technically you're kind of keeping the status quo of what you've got now. Each water and wastewater system does their own thing. The advantages that came from doing scenario two, and there's two key ones. The minor one, it's not minor for Denise, but the minor one is that from an accounting and tax bill perspective, as Tina commented, there's 7 different water systems. So each water system had to be a separate run of tax bills, where if they all had the same rates, you can run them all together. So there's certainly less work for staff. That wasn't the key factor of what went into this. And I'm going to say Sean did the best job of explaining the benefits of amalgamating these rates, having one reserve fund and looking at it. And council has used this same analogy in the past. We used to, even when we first amalgamated, we had a North Patrol, a South Patrol, and we had separate money that was going into each of the 5 wards. It didn't take us long to realize that we were a lot better off financially, productively, to pool those funds. And whenever we were going to do a job, we could do a bigger job, we could do more, we were getting more bang for our buck. And we didn't decide that it had to be in the north, had to be in the south. We did the work where the work needed to be done. And that was really the sales pitch that Sean brought back to us, because he gave a great example, is that if you've got an area that needs water or wastewater work done, but you're forecasting out how long it's going to take for the residents that pay for that service to pay that one back, even though it's really important that that work get done, you may not do the work because you think financially we just can't do it right now. And you're going to try and keep pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off until you can raise some funds in the reserve account. But if you pool all the funds together, you basically then make the decision, what's the most important thing we can do? Where do we need to do our work? What's the best move going forward? And that, I think, is what really convinced most of the committee that this was the right way to go. So although Vanastra itself as a whole is getting the benefit of this program, we all know that because of the infrastructure that was left there by the federal government and what we've been trying to catch up on has not been a good scenario. And those people have actually been paying a lot more than anybody else in the municipality. And as it was pointed out, a little bit of an increase for all of us makes it palatable for everybody across the municipality going forward. So although Vanastra may need the most work right now, when it comes down to doing something in Brussels or in Seaforth, or if we're gonna expand into another area, the funds will be there and we'll move forward that way. There was a couple other points that I should have wrote them down, but I didn't. Oh, yeah, there was, the reason we asked Tina to go back and do some math, because I really appreciated the fact that, the increase they wanted on year one was equal to the next 10-year increases combined. And I thought that was quite a parting gift for the mayor to up everybody's bills that much in 1 year. So I asked that we rerun those numbers. So we actually changed it so that it's only a 2/3 increase of what it was going to be. So originally it was gonna technically be a $240 increase on year one for both water and wastewater combined for everybody. We dropped it down to 156. Now, of course, that did up the rates for the other 9 or 10 years that were on the chart. But at the end of the day, 10 or 11 years down the road, we've raised the same amount of money and we can do all the same amount of work. We're just not hitting. And we did discuss the fact that, you know, once you have an increase in any service that's over $100 in 1 year, that can be pretty hard on some people. For some people, it doesn't mean anything. You just bought a new house and you're having a hard time making payments. The last thing you need is another $200 or $300 bill that you were not expecting to show up. So that was the reason we went with scenario 2. So at this point, myself or any of the members of the committee or the staff that worked on this would be happy to answer any questions for you. But certainly the recommendation the committee came with was to go with scenario 2. Any questions? Councillor Steffler.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think it only makes sense that there's one, we're here in each, we have one piece where we need the work done, we get the work done, we can't continue to start piecing it by location. So I think that's awesome. And, you know, obviously for finance, 7 reserves to 1 reserve makes it a lot easier and actually helps us because now we can actually plan for a bigger project. We have 1 reserve versus nickel and diming into 7 different ones. I would agree, and thank you for the committee for doing that.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor McGrath.
It makes perfect sense because we don't know where the urgency is, you know, on how things fail, fall apart. But if it's a lot of your phases, are to do the phase bill, increase your budget. Sounds unfair, I get it, because some things were underfunded and let go too long, but at the end of the day, we are here in East and, you know, it's, if you have 2,000 people paying for a project when, the numbers are like accurate, but now you have 10,000 people paying for it, it's a lot easier on everybody, even if you're still getting the service regardless of the.
Councillor Steff.
And just, I don't know, just for reiteration there, that $14.8 million wastewater granted, I think that's got to be part of the big communication of why we're doing this and why it's there. Because people are going to see my rates going up or my water, my usage, but really, this was a no-brainer. Like, we did it now, the government provided 3/4 of the funding. We didn't, where were we going to get the rest of it in the future?
Councillor Chartrand.
The other thing we discussed too was, and I guess shame on us, we tried to keep the water and sewer rates low for a lot of years, so we talked about in our meeting. Or we should have been maybe raising those rates equal to the cost of living each year. And we would have caught up to, you know, where we're at now, so we tried to keep it low for a lot of years, but now this is the right way. By the way, we did the same thing with tax rates. Municipality, we had a different rate for Nicola, a different rate here, a different rate there, a different rate here. Now it's all one rate, so this makes total sense. So I support but number 2 as well.
Well, if I can get a mover and a seconder, I will read this novel. Councillor Fisher and Councillor Steffler. That the Council of the Municipality of Huron East accept the recommendation from the Water and Sewer Committee to approve the 2026 water and wastewater rate study dated January 30th of 2026 and implement a consolidated rate structure to recover the cost of water and wastewater services in the municipality of Huron East. And that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approves and adopts the Municipality of Huron East Water and Wastewater Financial Plan prepared by Watson and Associates Economists Limited, dated January 30th of 2026. And that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East directs staff to post the adopted Municipality of Huron East Water and Wastewater Financial Plan on the municipal website and advertise that is available to the public, and that the water and wastewater financial plan dated January 30th of 2026 be submitted to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Ontario Regulation 453/07, Section 3, Paragraph 1, Subsection 6, and that the council resolution approving the water and wastewater financial plan be submitted to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, MECP, satisfying the requirements under the Safe Drinking Water Act of 2002, SDWA Section 35, Paragraph 5, Subsection 2, Subsection II. Comments or questions, and I will not read that again. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you very much. Thanks for your help, Tina.
You're welcome, my friend.
We are down to, who's giving this? Denise, the financial grants report? Municipal grants?
Mhm.
Yes, correct, that, according to me, and ultimately. Just looking for council direction on how you want to proceed with the applications that came through for the 2026 budget. There's none of these applications were, like, they were all in compliance with the policy as it is written, so. The request exceeds what we have in the budget.
Okay, I don't have any problem, although I did have a question on one, but I've got a bit of a stickler problem in the fact that I was going to ask a question about the Tanner Steffler, but the gentleman that is present has declared a conflict of interest and it does not have the ability to answer any questions. So is there an opportunity to ask any questions? I want to be legal.
So if I can think about this correctly, just give me a second. He's recused himself as Counselor Steffler, a pecuniary interest. Technically, you could be a member of the public during this conversation and represent Tanner Steffler Foundation. That would be a way to answer questions directly related to that one. We could try and answer questions as best as we can based on the application. But being as he stepped away from a counselor, he'd be there as like a representing his other hat.
Okay. No,
If that makes sense, if that makes sense to you, answering on behalf of the Tanner Steffler representative, not as Counselor Steffler.
Okay, and so John, I'm gonna address you as a citizen, just as someone that did an application. I read through the application. It says that you meet the requirements of what funds are being used for. It doesn't talk specifically about what they're being used for, but it looks like throughout the year, you're gonna use them on different programs and stuff like that. My question stemmed back to, we do have a policy about doing grants to an individual organization multiple years in a row. And I could not remember whether the Tanner Steffler Foundation had an application and or received a grant last year.
You're asking, the answer I believe is no. I would have to confer with the organization to the treasurer to make sure.
Okay,
The answer to my awareness, there was no application last year through the granting. There was no application for any funding through Huron East.
okay. And that was the only thing that jumped into my head, is because I'm pretty sure our policy, we didn't want to do multiple years in a row with an organization.
So the only thing that I can recall that Tanner Steffler Foundation came to Huron East with was the mobile food truck exemption. And that was in closed session and voted down because it was a new policy. So there was no funds given for that. It was voted down.
Okay, all right, thank you very much for those answers. Any questions from any other member? Oh, go ahead.
I would like to confirm, that's my understanding.
Okay,
I would like to confirm that with Tanner Steffler Foundation bookkeeping. I don't believe so. So I don't know if you all of a sudden come back that, yes, we did. or they did. I don't know how you want to answer. I'm about 99% confident, but I don't want to get caught in a
No, and,
conflict.
and I appreciate that
Denise,
answer.
you might be able to.
Bring it up now.
Well, I you sat in on the grant structure last year.
Sorry, I sat in on the
You sat in on the grant structure, so you were sitting in on it, obviously you didn't have an application for it. That is my understanding.
Yeah, that's confirmed, so we're not,
Okay.
She's got the program off.
Okay.
So that's all.
they were not a recipient, 2025.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I've had a lot of problems with this. I haven't liked this program to begin with, and I still don't like it. All these groups are asking, they're all great groups. Nothing against any one of them at all. I just worry whether the ratepayers of Huron East want us to be doling out monies to some mental health issues, some health things, healthcare. Don't get me wrong, they're great, so they are. I have problems with that, so I do, and I'll be voting against it. So if I have my way, I'll try to stop this before next year, this program. I think we're missing the mark altogether. All the ones we started out to try to help, they're not even on here. So that's just my thoughts.
Counselor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Deputy Mayor. We had a bit of a discussion this afternoon, to me. The hockey, the Haven, and Tanner stuff for our healthcare. I don't think we should be involved with healthcare. The lawn bowling is gonna be part of the grant. I don't think when we own the building, they should come to us and try to work out some kind of agreement that they raise 10,000 and Parkland puts in 10,000 or something like that. And I'm okay with a one-time grant to the mill. And the plow and Van Egmond and the Ag Society. Well, I can't remember the other one, the ninth one. No, covered it.
Plowman's.
Who?
Plowman's.
Yeah, I covered that.
The hockey one.
Whole thing.
Van Egmond, plow, Ag Society, and one time only to the mill. Is there two for Ag?
There's
One
a
for
few.
each? Okay, then that's the ones I would support, and I also agree with Councilor McClellan. I think we should either restructure this or get rid of it totally. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Counselor Chartrand in a second. I need to ask a question. We had a little discussion about what might move forward with the lawn bowling. Is anybody prepared to share any of that now or yeah?
Well, Lisa and I just had a discussion a bit before. We've been working with the lawn bowling club in terms of other retrofits and improvements to the building. And as it is a municipal building, we thought it would be best to work with the community group to develop a plan forward on exactly what renovations and improvements need to be made so that we can stage that out or address maybe that through operating budgets like we have in other community organizations that are in our buildings, fundraising versus operating budget process. So we prefer, the staff would appreciate having the opportunity to kind of work with the group as well.
And
Develop
I certainly appreciate the fact that Lisa sits down with them and they work out some sort of plan to come back to council and here's what we're gonna do over time. Because the problem is if in fact we were ever going to give them the $20,000 that was requested right off the bat, we technically have less control over it when it's a grant process. But if Lisa sits down with the group and they work out a plan on things that they're going to do, then council's aware of the steps that are going to take, whether it's over 1 year or 5 years or whatever, and has more involvement and say into what's going to move forward. So that certainly to me sounded like a much better way to handle it was for Lisa to have that interaction with them. Councilor Chartrand.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna say to take the lawn bowling completely off of here because that group has probably put in 4 different applications around town, like throwing that everything. They applied for the Trillium Grant. They're applying for this grant. They came to the Seaport Development Trust and asked them for $30,000 for windows and doors, the same as this 20,000 grant here. They also applied to Homecoming for a grant, so they're trying to see what's gonna stick to the wall here. But, they, we own the building. 4 or 5 years ago, we paid 100% to have a new roof put on that building. No different than, the Optimist Park where they raised half the money for lights and we paid half the money for lights, so I agree we should be working with them and have them help fundraise as well. But, they're gonna get quite a bit done in this year, from what I understand, on one previous grant already.
Are there any other comments, Councillor Dalton?
I agree with the deputy mayor and Councilor Fisher. I think we're way off what the grants originally were for. There's a lot of places out there that don't have a big chance to fundraise, they don't have a big volunteer group, and they're trying to, an example would be a couple of ballparks, Bethel Ballpark, and there's nothing, and they haven't applied, and I mean, they always got a little stipend from the municipality for the work they did. And those parks, or not just parks, there's halls, parks, there's a lot of things, are used by a lot of people in here in East. And I think that's where the grant should go, is somewhere where it's spread well across here in East. They're smaller organizations, they aren't looking for 5 or 10,000, they're looking for $500, I think is what they used to get. And it's just a little bit of a stipend from here in East. Maybe a little appreciation for what they're doing, so I don't agree with how this is being handled, and I would agree with the deputy mayor that we have to relook at this entire grant.
Okay, so, and I'll get to Councillor Chartrand in a second. The bottom line is, we do have a policy, but it's up to council's vote to what grants we give out. And we wrote a policy with good intentions, but if the applications that come in don't feed the desire of council's goal, then council doesn't have to approve them. But then at the same time, I would suggest that somebody later on in the meeting make a motion that we sit back down and review the policy because we did say last year that once we got into this year, we'd have an opportunity to see how things came in and what worked and what didn't work. We're already finding that there's some discontent with the applications we got, and I agree with you 100%. I always think every time the municipality is doing something with taxpayers' money, that money should be looked at. What percentage of our population is actually benefiting from it? And if it's a very small percentage of the population, then you want to be very careful about how much you're actually giving out. And when it's a ball diamond that's used all summer long, whether it's for lights or anything else, if a large population of the municipality is getting use out of it, well, then it's the taxpayers that are getting the benefit from their tax dollars. So there is merit to stuff like that. Councillor Chartrand.
Yeah. Think back, we had lengthy discussion on this whole process last year. This is really the first time we're using our new policy. What really caught me off guard when I saw this is, how come all these other groups didn't apply? They could have applied, the ballparks, any other group could have applied, and they never did. And they used to, but didn't this time. I don't know why they didn't, but they had that opportunity to do so. So I don't know why they didn't, but this is, I'm correct, right? The first time we're following the new policy that we made.
That's correct. Councilor McGrath, you had something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, last year, the policy, you request had to be ready in a certain time.
That's right, yeah.
Or would we consider, so maybe they've missed the new schedule. I'm just speculating on that. But maybe-
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure staff had notified everybody who had previously applied for.
I'm not denying staff
Yeah.
notified them, I'm just saying maybe they forgot that, we have more time and we don't call suddenly, because I know we did change.
They even extended it as well.
Okay, at some point, I have to take a motion on this, so we can do one of two things. We could pass it. Complete, the way it is presented, or we can pass each individual one with a separate vote. What is council's desire? Councillor Fisher.
4 I said, or the 5 I said.
And Councillor Fisher, at any point, somebody can make a motion. And we will vote on that motion. And if it talks about some of them and it eliminates them or accepts them, it doesn't matter. Once council has made that decision, then we will look at the rest. And so if you
Okay.
want to make that
I
decision.
would make a motion that we support, Plowman, Van Egmond, Maitland Mill once only, Ag Society.
Okay, so that is not dealing with the rest at this point. That is just dealing with those 5. We don't have to deal with them all at once.
The
No,
rest, I don't want to support them.
no, but the bottom line is you're making a motion, which motion should be in the positive affirmation anyway. So you're saying we should grant those 5 as requested and approved by staff to meeting the rules.
Yep.
Okay, so that is a motion moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by the deputy mayor. Do I have more comments or questions just for the motion that's on the floor right now for those 5 entities? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Motion carries. Now, there are a number of other ones that were listed. Is there a motion or direction for the other applications on the policy? Councillor Chardon.
I'm totally against the lawn bowling one. We take that one off the table, I think we are close to our budget.
With the ones that have already been approved. Yeah, so he
I believe we are,
still be room,
we're still underneath the 20, just underneath the 25,000 if you remove the lawn bowling club.
21,000.
We set a budget of 25,000, right?
Correct.
Councillor Dalton.
Like the industrial hockey. Did we not kind of tweak that one last year?
We had a large discussion about that, and if I remember correctly, the reason that even though it was after the fact, we went along with it because of the letter they sent in, the amount of money that they technically put back into the community, although it's not directly to Huron East programs, it did go to the hospital and things like that, and the amount of money that they stated that they gave over the years far exceeded the contribution coming from Huron East. And I think the money from Huron East basically ended up just helping them cover the cost of renting the arena.
So we can tweak it or we.
You can make whatever motion you want at this point, and if it gets a seconder, we'll have discussion and go from there. I couldn't hear that, sorry.
I'm just doing the math, where we are for our amounts is all I'm thinking.
Where we are with what?
The math, where are we with that for 3,000, if that was something that we agreed to support?
So you could support all of them minus the lawn bowling club and you would be at just over 21,000.
I don't think that was the question you were asking, and whether it fit within the budget or not, because we already knew that based on the
Right.
report, but how much did we donate last year, Denise? Do you have that amount? I think that's what you, it was 3,000, so it's their request is equivalent to what.
Well, I would support giving them the $3,000 for their hockey tournament. Or I would make a motion to support that. Is that what you mean?
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Chartrand. Any other comments or questions on that one? All those in favor? 5, 6. I think I got 6. Can I see the hands again? 2, 3, 4. I have 6. Yes, motion carries. Any other motions?
Just a question on moving. Would any of that fall under Parkland Reserve? I'm referring to the bowling club. When we do own it. Renovations, would that be? I could apply that plus for Parkland Reserve.
I'm gonna say that chances are Lisa's going to come back with information for council after having a discussion with the lawn bowling group. And at that point, the options for council on how to move forward will be available to us. we don't have to make that decision tonight.
No, I'm just wondering if that's an option. Going forward, but the way he says he got a bunch of irons in fire now, so. He could come to that because. We have been known in the past where St. Clement Soccer and Brussels Fall Diamond come in and last minute. Had all this expenditures and we covered those, that's all. I'm wondering if something to look at. I'm not saying at this point, but. Wait for the report, yes.
I,
If there was.
I would say the advantage we have right now is because they put the request forward in the grant application. Lisa's got time to go and talk to them and get back to council with information prior to any work being done anyways. So we'll be ahead of the game, not like we were with St. Columban Soccer. Where it was after the fact. Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we grant Tanner Stuffler Foundation and the Haven $1,000 each.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councilor McGrath has seconded it. Comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That motion carries. 7. What's left on the list? No, we just
No,
did that one.
Haven. I believe it's just the lawn bowling club that's left on the list.
Okay, and I think if I'm correct, council's willing to wait for Lisa to come back with information and after she's had a discussion with them.
What's our total now?
Need a motion for that, Mr. Mayor?
I'll ask. Do I need a motion for that?
We can take it as a direction of staff to continue conversations with the Seaforth Lawn Bowling Club.
Yeah, since we're not giving anything out at the moment, I guess we
Yeah.
don't. Someone just had a question. Oh, yes.
Sorry, I was just gonna make a comment about using parkland reserve. It's a municipal building. We cannot use parkland reserves to fund that. Aside from that, all the motions, all the approvals, there's still $11,750 remaining to be approved from the program after tonight's.
Which, there's no harm in leaving something in there. At all. Deputy Mayor.
I guess my thought was of where I was going with this. I mean, in the past, it worked good if somebody walked in with some big good
Emergency.
idea. You know, and so then it's up to council to either yes or no. So that's where I guess I was going with this. It worked in the past where, because lots of groups can't or don't want to hit the deadline to have their application in for their money. So this here kind of leaves that door open that if somebody comes along with something that council deems a good idea, community event or something, we have some money to work with.
And I don't disagree with that at all, although we should right away look at changing the policy, because the way the policy is written is if you didn't have that application in the fall, we're technically not supposed to approve it at this point. But I think, and that was the whole idea of the first year, we said we'd see how it worked. We'd go back and do whatever tweaking we needed to. And I would say we've just discovered that we do want to make some tweaks to it. So whatever group or committee or whatever sits down to work on that, take all the information we know at this point and see what we come back with for a proposal for making changes.
Just if I may, if we could, just have a formalization since leaving it open for future applications, if we have a motion that you'd prefer to keep the remaining funds in the account and deviate from the policy in that regard so that the applications can still come in for the remainder of the year.
Okay.
For the remaining funds.
I have no problem with that, but that'll take 2/3 of council, correct? Because we're making a change to our own policy.
I do not think so. I think it's all majority. Last procedural update we did, it was a majority vote.
Okay, so
2/3 are just reconsideration.
that was moved by the deputy mayor to have those funds available for future applications that council deems necessary or worthy. Second by Councillor Wilby. Any comments or questions on that motion? All those in favor? And motion carries. Interim tax bylaw.
Just an information report, so that was to cover the bylaw that's later in the agenda as a informational report.
Winter operations plan and policy. Sean, this was a lot of reading for plowing snow. At least that's the way I looked at it.
Answer the question possible.
I only had one, that came from that. I don't know if Megan had an opportunity to forward it to you. So my question was, is that because they're talking on the news about shortages of salt for everywhere? Legally, what position does it put us in when we have minimum maintenance standards that are set by the province? If in fact we run out of salt, it's not anything we can control. Can we still do our job, and not be concerned about liability if in fact the winter carries on for the next 6 weeks the way it has the last 6?
I guess the short answer would be. At this time, no, like you would still be responsible for hitting those minimum maintenance standards. I haven't seen any communication from the province say otherwise, because everybody in the whole province is under the same kind of issue. As it stands right now, in the past, we were able to get a load of salt with like a day's notice. Currently, we're at 2 weeks, which still, like, we maintain enough salt stand storage that if we know what the schedule is, we can order it, get our salt, maintain our stockpile, and we carry on, right?
Okay.
It was just a slight change in how we schedule trucks to bring our salt in, right? I would think that's probably pretty consistent with everybody across the county, and that's how we procure our salt is bulk purchasing through the county. So I imagine everybody in our area is kind of under similar circumstances. And Compass Minerals, their communication is that they're still committed to meeting their obligation. So it's just, I think it's just a bit more of a rationing, I guess you could call it, than it has been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions on, go ahead, Councillor Stuff.
Yeah, these one really, just from two constituents, could we maybe send a note of cleaning hydrants? I know it's really not for you, but just out of state, because I noticed there's a lot of hydrants. I've had a couple people just say, hey, whose job is it to get it? Well, honestly, it's not our job to get it, but it is.
We do try to get. It's just not in replacement of maintaining the roads, right? And we do try to put communication, and I think we already maybe have already this year, and no issue.
Just put a blast out if you would.
Absolutely.
And then second of all, just another person that inquired to me about the sidewalks on the main street. There's two store operators at Seaford that do a very good job, and then there's others that just leave it. We have, again, roads to get to with that sidewalk. So I'm not sure the responsibility is actually the landlord or paying the lease or the sidewalk office, but if we could make a constant effort of reminding whoever's in charge of cleaning the sidewalks that the sidewalks need them taken care of. Just during the store hours.
Sure. Typically, that's our responsibility to meet minimum maintenance standards for the sidewalks that are cleared. That's our responsibility. That if the building itself is affecting the sidewalks, that's a different issue. Like if you had water melting and running off your building onto the sidewalk, that's different. Now that starts to bring that property owner into the fold more. But typically, like if it's like windrow snow, kind of like between the parking stall and the building, you're right, like a business owner can take it upon themselves to move that snow. But I don't think I would characterize it saying that it's their responsibility to move it. That is our property and that's ours to maintain. And we do hit our maintenance targets for that.
Yeah, so again, no big deal. And I think we just got hit with a whole bunch of snow in a small period of time that we can only do what we can do, but just as long as we're aware and letting people know that we're doing our best.
So I can confirm that, the municipality did have front end loader go around and try and clean out a lot of the fire hydrants. The unfortunate part is if people didn't keep up with it to the point where we had to go around with the front end loader, the snowbank's so hard, they can't dig them out now anyway.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Like it is a problem.
Not that they're fair, but this is.
Yeah,
Usually use that sidewalk.
that's correct. Yeah. I would say like, barring consistent snowfall, hydrants and sight lines at intersections and like snow pile to make room for more snow. Those are one of the top three things that we are doing if we are,
Yeah.
if we're not moving snow by plow, then that's what we're doing.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the policy? Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Deputy Mayor and Councilor Morrison, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approve and implement the winter operations plan as presented. All those in favor? And motion carries. Dust control tender results. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Put it on the floor. Councilor Wilby and Councilor Chartrand, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East award the dust control tender HE 02 2026 to 552976 Ontario Limited. That's Cliff Holland. At the unit price of $440 for total contract price of $392 or $392,788, inclusive of taxes and contingencies. And that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approve the budget variance of $3,717.76 funded from operating budget dust control 1-310-100-5027 as necessary. Comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Brussels Library Committee Room. Mover and a seconder, please.
Question.
Oh, I'm gonna ask questions before I call the vote. Moved by Councilor Fisher, second by Deputy Mayor, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approve the Brussels Library Community Room Use Policy, and that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approve an amended fee for the Brussels Library Community Room as contained on Schedule G, recreational and cultural fees of the fees and charges by law, and that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East authorize the change of locks at the Brussels Library. Go ahead, Councillor Stedman.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Lisa. What are the protocols of C4 in the library? I would like to see as much as uniformity as possible. And just, so we're coming to here in East, you go to our website, you want to book a arena or library, that's your, it has to be a cost, it has to be secured. The cost of when somebody's there versus the cost when nobody, those all make sense. Just how easy is it or how difficult is it to make one library policy, knowing that we're funded the same way through the county and doing it?
Well, they're not comparable.
Okay.
This is our library, doesn't have a community room to rent.
But people do, like we have a foundation, I'm just using rent or utilize the library or nonprofit, so we would follow the thing, for Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, yes.
So we do use it.
Mhm.
So I'm just trying to we don't have a basement. I know what you're trying to bring up to get the thing there, but we're still utilizing some spaces in there. As is the Seaport SAG group, but they're still for the most part because there's a problem with it. But as long as the policies, I think we're here in East, would just be consistent along. And I don't, and you're saying they're not fair, so I get that,
Yeah.
but I just want.
So the space that's at the Seaforth Library is actually like a library space. The space that's in the Brussels Library was in relation to the renovation. So the library space in Brussels has similar space that the Seaforth has as well. They have a small space that things like that to do, for example, like your Dungeons and Dragons, things like that. But the additional piece there was built and made so that it could be rented for the community.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not comparable.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a little different.
If I could just tag on, it's also separate as in Huron County Libraries do have a policy for renting their meeting rooms for both of those. It's across their policy. So there is a overarching one.
Yeah.
And how as Lisa just said, that's what makes this one separate because Huron East put that community room in and it's meant to be a community room for Brussels, essentially.
So where we went to council chambers, when we went offsite, correct?
Correct. So that's why the struggle that we've encountered, not just recently over the last couple years, especially with changing of staff, is the intent originally was to have Brussels community use that space, but there's been different procedures, I guess, that some people have been allowed to use it for free, some have had to pay, different hours of operation. And so there's just not a blanket approach so that when we're getting calls of, I want to book the room, okay, it's $20 and it's, no, I don't pay. Okay, but equal comparison pays. It's just setting those guidelines so that we can have a policy for this room so that we can treat it fairly in comparison to how the library does treat their other rooms.
Basically, the library is the location,
Yes,
the room is the discussion.
yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Newell.
Thank you to Lisa. As Justin just said, there's lots of confusion obviously as to what the rate is, and one of the things that I've heard is that it was initially built with not-for-profit groups to get free space. That's one of the ones I've heard. Looking through the document, the staff report, it looks like it's not a charge to not-for-profit groups during library hours. Is that correct? Okay, so I'm wondering if that wording can be put in the policy, so we've got it set in stone in the policy, and maybe it is, maybe I just missed it in there. Like it's in the staff report, but I just wonder if we could add it to the policy.
I think it's in the agreement with the library, the end. Like with the agreement we have.
So the policy is based on the library policy. So we've made one that is specific to Huron East. The fees are outlined in the fee schedule, so in our fees bylaw, where we would clarify that nonprofit would be free during library hours with proof of status.
Right.
Outside of library hours, we would still charge a fee because they need access and like I said in the report, custodial fees, heat, hydro, things are rising. So that's kind of where we're looking for that after hours sort of consistency, that at least there's some sort of fee arrangement for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this motion? All those in favor? And motion carries. Next was our feasibility and expanding childcare services report. It was for information purposes, unless somebody had any comments or questions. Counselor Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I asked for that, and I appreciate the work that was put into it, and really think that this is important to C4/Huron East going forward. When certain other things occur, there's going to be definitely a large increase in demand for daycare as our municipality grows. So I would hope that this staff could keep an eye on what's going on in the county and provincially, and going forward, if there are ever any other opportunities for more daycare, we jump on that quickly. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the comments, Counselor Stafford.
Thank you, that was a good report, brings us into everything. The local daycare, super cooperative daycare is also looking at the front of the space. They got a huge wait list, so as we dig deeper into this, well, obviously, I think we talked last time at council, do we want to own a building and run a daycare? Do we want to contribute to an expansion of daycare? I think this is going to lead to those next questions. So, our December funding application date is gone, but I agree with Councilor Fisher to put it right on our primary focus and the deal, and maybe confer with the independent daycares that are already in. Go on. Good work.
The downside is there certainly was grant money available to either build or expand daycare service. The problem with the money that comes from the province for those grants to expand is that we're still on the hook for the operation after the fact.
Right.
And that's our problem. It's not the buildings themselves, it's the operation.
Correct. We've dealt with that a lot.
Yeah.
Staffing, we identified all these hurdles
Yeah.
and attrition stuff.
And there's no doubt, the rules and regulations were put there to make sure that the children were safe that are in a daycare service. And I understand that part of it, but those rules and regulations to ratios is what costs so much money. And unless the province can figure out a way to tweak those to make it a more viable operation, it's gonna be tough for many places to expand their service.
The one
Go
other
ahead.
question we did have, it, was news to me. Is the Walton situation, is that in more further as opposed to your issue that I missed something? Because it was in the report that Walton had the daycare funding.
They received funding from the county. Is that what you mean?
So we're talking about Walton Little School.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, not a new building or anything.
No, they
Yeah, okay.
they had received funding to expand on their license, so their capacity.
Correct, so that's the Walton Little School.
That's
not a
not
new
not
unit
a
funding.
not a new,
Yeah.
sorry. So yeah, so some of the funding was for different purposes, not just solely buildings.
Yeah, no,
But yeah.
the current business moved to Brussels, which is awesome, the open expansion, so it worked out well.
We have a request from Brussels Minor Ball. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Newell, second by Councillor Fisher. The Council of the Municipality of Huron East has no objection in regards to the request of the Brussels Minor Ball Executive to close Sports Drive between McCutcheon Drive and Market Street on May 30th, 2026 from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. We are down to council reports, and so I turn to the Deputy Mayor for County Council report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our last meeting we had was on January the 21st. Here in Perth Public Health were there and presented their budget for the upcoming year. I think, how many people did you let go in the here in Perth? I forgot to write that down.
Yeah, the first year it was 13 and a half, I think it was, and then last year we let go. I'm gonna say it was 3 or 4, and I think it was about 4 or 5 again this year.
Yes. In social and property services, we voted on increasing the funds to North Huron by $300,000 to assist in their increased costs for their child care center project. We received a report from Public Works concerning trying to slow traffic down on County Road 25 coming up on 21. That's the Auburn Road for anybody that's kind of running that. It's traffic is a problem there, but that's speeding through there. We're coming up on 21. In economic development, the Starter Company Plus grant recipients were announced. We had 2 winners from Huron East. Barney Tech from Walton received $3,850 for some new equipment. And Minas, is it from Seaforth here? They got $3,850 as well for a trailer. They're a company that has that non-alcoholic drinks. It's a mobile setup, I believe it is. So
I'm sorry, did you say 350 and
3,850.
38?
Yes.
Thank you.
30, both cases there.
Awesome, thank you.
And then we discussed the budget. Again, we heard from social and property services on that day, also EMS, Public Works, Homes for the Aged, and Economic Development. And our budget day at the county will be next Wednesday, February the 11th. So.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any questions? Next, I have any other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars that anybody has a report on? Councillor Wilby.
Well, I did attend Roma, and John wrote a really good report that probably everybody read. They did things a little different this year, and I thought it worked out really well. So I attended different committee meetings. I tried to go to the ones other people weren't going to. Hydro was one the dinner that I went to. I went with girls actually, and they mentioned people downloading the app, and I had never done that. And it's a good idea. And they also recommended that we phone in if we have a high voltage, because it pins it down better for them. And then on the last day I attended, this isn't the right title, the nursing home breakfast, where they were discussing long-term care. That's right. And I really didn't think she was focusing on rural
they really look at, what's going on in the city. And, so that was my thought on that. So I thought it was a good, uh, time this year to go, so, just wanted to mention it.
Okay, thank you. Actually, thanks for bringing it, Roma. I forgot about it. I think I had mentioned before that the CAO and myself had sat in on one session which had to do about budgeting, and I thought it was an amazing presentation. But also the clerk and myself ended up being in the same room where we were talking about recycling. And I didn't have a chance to talk to Megan afterwards because I wanted to hang around. And I forgot to bring the card tonight, but I knew one of the AMO people that had set up the original session, Michael Jassett, and I did get his card. So I was going to give it to you, and if in fact, through Blue Water or whoever, if someone would like to have, a conversation with people at AMO, Michael was willing to introduce me to someone there after the event was over. I said that didn't make any sense because I didn't have as much of the individual knowledge of what goes on a regular basis as the deputy mayor does. So that's why I got his card, although I'd be happy to sit in if in fact you had an opportunity, because I do know a number of people at AMO, and Michael is a good person to deal with. And so I will try and remember to give you that card tomorrow morning at the county. But if they do want to call, I had shared with him my concerns about what we thought was a great idea when the province had passed the law, and how it's not only self-defeating, but almost negative against the rest of the population now with what they're talking about doing. So they have an interest and opinions going forward in us because they also have concerns about what the province is doing. So I will try and get you that information more. Councillor Stefan.
Just exactly on the same notes, the Roma slide decks did come out to everybody. If maybe clerk, you could send that out to the council, just so they could go in and see what the sessions were. Slide decks all came out. If you have any questions, just reach out to any one of us over there. I'm sure one of us were in one of the sessions.
Yeah, and the slide decks are good to give you an overall perspective.
Correct.
But as I said to the CAO, if it wasn't for the person that actually gave the presentation about the budgeting, seeing the slide deck, you never would have got
Or
the
understand.
real feel for it. This person was amazing. Like this is like, here's my example. It's actually having to go to a lawyer and being excited. Like this guy was good. And I mean, he presented it well. It made sense. It wasn't big words. He spoke to the crowd the way everybody could understand the pros and cons of doing different things and different options that are available to us all. And, you know, he talked about borrowing money. It's not a bad thing, he says, but you got to live within your means. And the bottom line is, now this is always my example. A lot of us have a bad taste in our mouth when we were told that we could borrow money to run the municipality. But we look at the examples of both the federal and provincial governments got out of control. And now they have debts that they're having a hard time even figuring out how to pay the interest on them, never mind pay the money back. The province was smart enough that when they allowed municipalities to borrow the money to do these jobs, they basically became your banker. When you want to go and borrow money, the banker asks for a business plan, says, you know, can you pay it back? How is this going to work? And so the banker puts limits on you because they want you to be able to pay the money back. They don't want you to have to collapse. And the province has done the same thing. They've set limits. Now, most municipalities, it doesn't matter what the province set as the limit. I bet you most municipalities will never borrow more than 25% of what the province said you could borrow because everybody's so scared of it. And that's not a bad thing. But this guy certainly did explain, if you use it as a tool of good management, it can be very worthwhile to do it. Don't be scared of it. Just don't wield it without any thought process. John.
And I did CAO, we were discussing there that that individual would be good to bring to the new council thing in January.
Absolutely,
After the election, right?
yes,
Explain it when things are fresh to new council.
yes, I agree with that 100%. Yeah. Are there any requests by members at this time? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple gentlemen in town who have been very, very successful with lawn bowling. Competing in world championships. Rick Wood and Murray Benaways. And Mr. Benaways is competing in another world championship. Coming forward, I'm not exactly sure when, in March. Thank you.
Norway.
I would like to get some kind of recognition for them, either through the rec committee or have them come here and present them with a piece of paper or something, just to thank them for what they've done personally and representing D4/Huron East. Like they're on a world stage with lawn bowling consistently.
Okay.
And I wondered going forward with our new website and Stacy's expertise, if we could promote vigorously. That is an election year this year. And we sure would like to have more than one election. Two, talk to any counselor about what it involves. I'm sure all of us would be glad to nurture someone or give them information. And the fact that AMO has two webinars about things for new counselors, things for being a diversified council, and even information for counselors who are running again. I would really like to push that because I wasn't happy with our election 4 years ago when several other wards were claimed and our 30.5% turnout.
Okay.
If that could be done, please.
Yeah, so the first one I would say is just direction, which is not a problem, coming at some sort of certificate or recognition. The second one, because we're asking staff to actually do something on the municipal website, should that be a motion of council?
We've already been doing that. So
Okay.
we've already got the dates and circulating them through social media. So as soon as we see those AMOs come out, we've been putting them out already. So I don't think we need a direction because it's already on there.
Okay, Councilor McGrath.
First of all, Bob, we wouldn't want to take guidance from Council McGrath because you gotta get rid of this dead wood. But we've some of us on the council here, Frank Stratton passed away. He was a counselor.
Oh.
That's a few years ago. So I'm sitting here, Al and myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we lost him last week. 77, so just like the respect that Frank,
Absolutely.
you remember.
I certainly do. That dead wood, you weren't referring to your chair, were you?
It is. Going on his- That chair and the 10 other ones upstairs.
9 months, Bob.
Yeah.
Are there any notices of motion at this time? Councilor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next council meeting, I would like to make a motion to get rid of the current grant program that we have and have the new council establish an ad hoc committee to come up with a better grant program.
Okay, you've given your notice, not a problem, so
Yeah.
you can work with staff to get that written out
That's
for
what
the
I'm
next
saying.
council
Thank
meeting.
you.
You know, absolutely not a problem. I do want to ask a question. Because we already have recognized that there were some glitches in what we had put down as a policy and we didn't like the results of that policy. Is there any reason that the council members that are here now shouldn't work on revisiting it because they're aware of the glitches that we ran into instead of waiting till the next term of council?
No, not, I thought that would be, proper procedure because this council agreed to what we have now.
If,
I don't think there was glitches either, Mr. Mayor. I think it was just evolution. Anyway,
okay,
yeah, I guess if nobody seconds and they vote me down, that's fine. Somebody else can make a motion to do it, where last year, but I figured because this council agreed to what we have now, that, which should be the next council. But again, if nobody wants to second it and then come up with a different or better motion, that's fine too, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
okay. There is no need to second it until the motion comes up. Did you have a comment on that or
Yeah.
something else?
Yeah, just no comment. I mean, with our tightening budgets over the years, I think maybe it might be time just to do away with it completely. That's just my comment.
That's crossed my mind too,
But,
Deputy Mayor.
I mean, we see it at the county, so we do. I mean,
Mhm.
I didn't know how that would work until I got there and I see how it works. We still get people send in requests for money. And, if council get onto it, then if they want to donate money, then that's fine. They gotta come up with where it's gotta come from. But maybe it's time for, and I think, and I could be wrong, but some of our departments, like maybe the fairs and stuff like that, if we want to make that a regular thing, we can just embed that into our budget.
Mhm.
And then we don't have to deal with that. We've embedded other things within our budget over the years, so it's worthwhile maybe looking at that. And maybe just doing away with it completely.
Councillor Stefan.
I would totally agree with Councilman Bell. I think a lot of these things we're dealing with are operational, and then some are just opportunistic. So. Put them in there, the fairs and that, no sense to make them go through branding processes when it can be part of some of our budget.
Okay. And I try my best not to use names, so it's deputy mayor or semi-worship according to Larry.
You get this thought.
Yeah.
You question, right?
Are there any announcements at this time? Seeing none?
No.
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Fisher.
Coldest night of the year. It's coming up, I'm thinking it's the last Saturday of the month. Help me out, Lisa. Yeah. I plan to be walking and I sure would like to have others to walk with me if you're interested. If not, I'll put in a word for you. As it stands now, I think it's gonna start at 10 a.m. at Bethel Bible, I think. I will have more information, I guess, before the walk. We have another council meeting.
Okay.
But you just think about it, please. It's more and more homeless in Huron and paying for cab fare to go to London now, I hear. Anyway. Yeah, think about coldest night of the year, please, fellow councilors and staff.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other announcements? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah. Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, their annual general meeting is set for February 28th. February 18th, I should say. And it's at 2 p.m. in Blythe, and I think we've been invited to that as a council, so I think I've seen an email.
Yeah, that came out to everybody, yeah.
That's okay.
Through the Maitland Valley sent that to everybody's email
Okay.
and asked for RSVPs to go to them.
You're quite welcome to go. It's you can see what we do there. It's very entertaining for a couple of hours, so.
Can I get a mover and a seconder for bylaw 17? Moved by Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor Chartrand. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 17 of 2026, a bylaw to authorize an Ontario transfer payment agreement with the Ministry of Transportation regarding the pothole prevention grant be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. I had one question, Sean, if I read that correctly, you can technically put that grant towards stuff that you did last year.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's say where you can place in these potholes.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 18. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Counselor Steffler. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 18, a bylaw to provide for interim tax levies for the year 2026 be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 19, Counselor Morrison and Counselor Newell. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 19, a bylaw to temporarily close a portion of Sports Drive for the Brussels Minor Ball Day be given first, second, third, and final reading signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for which one is this?
20.
Oh, yeah, 20, sorry, I'm looking at 17.4. Okay, mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor and second by Counselor Wilby. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 20, a bylaw to authorize an Ontario transfer payment agreement with the Ministry of Infrastructure regarding the housing enabling.
Water.
Oh.
Sorry, water.
Water System Fund be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. They would have just thought I slurred.
Well, that one was a tough one.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw, Counselor Steffler and Counselor Dalton moved. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 21, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. And mover and a seconder for adjournment, Counselor Fisher, Counselor Wilby, that the time now being 7:51 PM, the regular meeting do now adjourn until February 24th, 2026 at 6 PM. All those in favor? And motion carries.